Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second day of the World Economic Forum's Growth Summit on a very sunny, crisp spring day here in Geneva. My name is Tariq Ali Ahmed. I am the head of the Research and Studies Unit at Arab News, and I will be the moderator for today's panel. Now, first of all, I'd like to introduce you to my esteemed panelists. To my right, you have Dr. Erika Kramer-Mbula, Professor of Economics at the University of Johannesburg. We have Secretary Fadlala Akabani Hneide, the Secretary of Economic Development of Mexico City. We have Sonia Shourie, Vice President of Strategy, Marketing, and Communications at Area XO in Ottawa. We have His Excellency Rashid Al-Bloushi, the Undersecretary at the Abu Dhabi Department of Economic Development. And finally, Mr. Maurizio Tamanini, CEO and Managing Partner at FSI Milan. Now, given that we have such a large panel and such little time, I'm going to keep my intro very brief. Cities are at the front and center of some of the most pressing challenges we have in the world today. By 2050, 2 out of every 3 people are likely to be living in cities and urban centers, according to a UN study. And this highlights huge potential that cities have in terms of economic growth and innovation, but also flags growing challenges in sustainability, economic opportunities, and services that will be faced in the future. Now, economic resilience within cities is only possible through multi-stakeholder, cross-industry collaboration. City governments have been shuttered by a loss of residents and business due to increased cost of living in urban environments and accessibility to urban infrastructures. While some cities have developed diversified economies and emerged stronger, others, however, with monoculture economies struggle with really devastating consequences on employment, small businesses, productivity, and inequality. So how can a shift in thinking align public and private partners to future-proof cities? And this is what we hope to answer today. So I'm going to start off with a question to you, Dr. Kramer-Mbula. Africa is the continent that is set to be impacted most by this rapid urbanization trend. It currently has 3 megacities, which are Cairo, Kinshasa, and Lagos, and is set to have 4 more by 2050. These investment magnets are obviously a boon to many people in the continent. Would you walk us through, please, what this means for investors and the private sector, and how you think we should address this to ensure resilience and inclusive growth for all people?
Okay, thank you very much for the question and for being in this panel. I'll try and be very quick. It's a big question, but urbanization, as you well point out, is happening. Is one of the most visible transformations in the African landscape. It's happening faster than in other regions. African cities are growing faster, some of the fastest growing cities in the world, and they are also the youngest in terms of the population. So it's estimated that about 40% of the workforce is going to be in Africa, most of them living in cities in the next 20 years. There's a recent report by the OECD and the African Development Bank that highlights the positive contributions that living in cities has for the population and the residents in terms of increasing the living standards and also the socioeconomic outcomes. And that, when you compare the performance of some variables of people living in cities as compared to the national average. And that difference between living in cities and the national average is larger in African cities. So there's a positive impact of urbanization, but there are also some challenges. Very obvious ones have to do with infrastructure, with the delivery of basic services of housing and electricity and mobility, as well as the strain in natural resources, water and land, and the risk of informality. So people living in informal settlements and townships is also increasing. So this is the setup, but the pandemic has really highlighted how important cities are in building resilience, not only for the region, but also globally. When you have opportunities in the cities, the residents find work, find a way of living, there's less mobility, less migration, and so on. So what is happening is also in the dynamics of the pandemic, we see that cities are rapidly digitalizing. So we've seen an acceleration of digitalization in African cities, including e-commerce and digital payment solutions and so on. So in fact, many of the African unicorns and this boom of investment that has happened have started by providing solutions that were targeting this large informal base of the pyramid users and consumers of digital technologies. For instance, you can go to an African informal trader and pay without cash. So I think there are huge opportunities in sort of targeting that base of the pyramid, and also we are facing a situation, for instance, when you look at the case of mobile money. Several years ago in Kenya, you found about 90% of the population without banking, and the same percentage of people had access to mobile phones. So mobile money entered almost sort of provided banking solutions to large portions of the population, and almost without resistance of the banking industry, because you are in a situation where there's less legacy systems. And therefore provides huge opportunities to set up new mobility systems, energy solutions that sort of bypass and leapfrog, in other words, what is happening in the rest of the world. So let me stop there.
Thank you very much. Secretary Fadlala, collaboration between different stakeholders is crucial for the success of cities and the global economy. How do you engage and involve both the public and the private sectors in your efforts to bolster the local economy of Mexico City? And what strategies have you found effective in fostering innovation and entrepreneurship in the city?
Yes, well, first, Mexico City is a global city with investment for all over the world. Mexico City has connectivity, new infraestructure, strong financial services, the best universities, social and economical stability. And the mayor, Claudia Sheinbaum, wants to reduce inequality and environmental degradation. They want to give first the elemental human rights, because we have a big inequality between the families and the towns in interior of Mexico City. Education, health, safety, employment, transportation, housing. This is the strategy to reduce inequality, and this is the first step we do for attraction of investment. We make a permanent networking between the academia, private sector, and the government. Just one example. Since 2019, the start of this administration of Claudia Sheinbaum, to March 2023, 73,100 of new business, low impact, started operations, and they make 700,000 new jobs. And we give $111 million of loans for small businesses. And I think this is the way we choose to promote economic development in Mexico City and to reduce the inequality, because this is the first challenge we must attend.
Thank you very much, Secretary Fadlala. Sonia, innovation is crucial in ensuring that we can harness growth potential of cities. And this requires both public and private sector to cooperate. Please tell us about your experience in Ottawa. How do you ensure successful public and private cooperation to advance this kind of urban innovation there?
So it's a pleasure to be here. Ottawa is Canada's capital. I think it's very well recognized as the seat of the federal government. It's also a global tech hub, and that's something that we are really, really excited to harness and apply in novel ways. Just to give a bit of context on our city, it's just a little over 1 million people, 1,800 tech companies, and the highest tech talent concentration in all of North America, ahead of Silicon Valley. So 11.6% of our workforce actually works in the tech sector, and about 88,000 people when you look across the public and the private sector. So there's a tremendous opportunity to harness that horsepower. In addition, it's a very educated workforce, so about 61% of our workforce has a post-secondary degree. We have 4 post-secondary institutions and deep decades of deep technology expertise, particularly in telecom, ICT, advanced networks, and cybersecurity. So when you look across our ecosystem, which I believe is certainly very collaborative, it's thriving. We have a strong entrepreneurship sector. We have large multinationals that are large job creators. Shopify, of course, one of our best known companies. We, as the Economic Development Agency, wanted to find a way to create moonshots for our region that were really based on that collaborative public-private sector model, and also delivered social, economic, and environmental benefits to our region, to the companies we support, whether you're small, startup, scale-up, or a multinational, to contribute to Canada's well-being and to contribute something meaningful to the world. And so as an economic development agency, one of the novel ways I think we employed private-public sector partnership was through AREX.0. And that is our R&D complex for next-gen smart mobility, autonomy, and connectivity. So we serve all of those different stakeholders, from early-stage researchers and innovators right up to startups, scale-ups, and multinationals in all the different sectors where those technologies enable innovation. And we do it in a way that's safe and secure, that enables the development, testing, validation, demonstration, and ultimately the adoption of those technologies. And what's novel about the fact that we have this tech sector and the seat of the federal government, we're able to bring together or mash up all of those audiences with regulators who are responsible to drive all of the legislation and the frameworks that will allow those technologies to be implemented safely. Whether you're on the roads, intelligent transportation, whether you're leveraging our smart farm and accelerating solutions for long-term food safety and security, public safety, defense. There are so many applications and opportunities. And if I was to highlight one particular project where we had global, national, and local participation, it's our Smart Safe Intersections project, which brought together startups, multinationals, Transport Canada, the World Economic Forum using their Safe Drive initiative, and the University of Warwick's data safety pool. And so the opportunity for us to take this R&D complex, which was founded by all 3 levels of government, the City of Ottawa, the Province of Ontario, Government of Canada, with 5 multinationals, all of which have strong R&D capabilities and presence in our region, including BlackBerry, QNX, a world leader in 200 million cars worldwide, Nokia and Ericsson, leaders in 5G and in telecommunications, of course, Accenture and Microsoft, together with our post-secondary institutions. We've created something that's valued at about $51 million, but I think the value is so much more significant. It's the opportunities to harness our strengths, bring something to bear for every single one of those stakeholders that adds value to them commercially, that adds value to our society and to our environment, with the opportunity to reduce carbon emissions through the implementation of these technologies, and of course sharing and taking in many learnings from around the world. So it's very exciting to me.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Your Excellency, Abu Dhabi is known for its efforts to diversify its economy. What strategies and initiatives has the Abu Dhabi Department of Economic Development implemented to attract investments and foster this kind of economic growth? And how have these strategies contributed to the city's overall development and resilience?
Let me try to summarize that in 3 minutes. The establishment of the country was in 1970, and at that time the economy was very basic. So within time, thanks God, we had oil in our country. So we managed to use the resources of the oil to build the infrastructure of the country, of the city. Today, when we look at Abu Dhabi specifically, it is one of the most advanced infrastructure worldwide. And now it takes us to a 3rd phase of the development of the economy. which is having a vision to diversify our economy away from oil. As we talk today, 51% of the economy in Abu Dhabi depends on oil, 49% depends on non-oil. And we have a very clear statement from the President of the United Arab Emirates: we need to celebrate the last barrel of oil. When we introduce that, we need to have a very strong, well-diversified economy. What does that mean to us? We put a strategy, a vision, to have an economy relies on three main things. One is the sustainable growth, two, innovation, three, knowledge-based economy. Based on that, all sectors related to non-oils are important. However, we believe there are 6 sectors. If we concentrate on, the impact would be huge into the economy. These are financial services, ICT, agri-tech, industrial, bio and pharmaceutical, and I think the industrial. Now, let me dig down into the industrial. What we want from that? We believe that we have all the resources, infrastructures, rules, regulations to further develop our industrial sectors. We want, by 2031, to have the GDP portion of Abu Dhabi into the industrial to be increased by 100%, reaching $46.8 billion. We want the export to reach $48.7 billion. That is an increase of 143%. We need to have 13,600 new jobs to that sectors. And now, to get to there, what we want, we have allocated, invested $2.7 billion into this industrial sectors. We believe, from the history, from looking at the people that we have, we believe that we would reach. Now, it is not only industrial, because you need to create ecosystems. So we are making the life for the investors, their families, their financial situations, their style of living, all around this ecosystem that we are trying to develop. I think I'll stop, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Maurizio, as CEO of FSI, what role do you believe that the private sector plays really in supporting growth and development within the cities? And how can this private sector really contribute to making cities more affordable and accessible for their residents?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the invitation. I think the role is critical, and I will summarize it at the beginning and at the end, and then introduce very quickly FSI. The role is of the one that manages the projects that need to be started and supported by public. Public and private need to work together, but our experience, our research around the world on what are the failed attempt and the winning experiments, the winning experiments are the one where the private is actually leading the management of the project inside of the city with a very strong support, cooperation, and many times start-up through legislation, regulation, and financial aid from the public. So that's the quick summary. FSI is the largest, one of the largest continental European institutionally led growth equity investor, and we do make investment in healthcare and technology mainly. But we did get involved in a very large project in Milan, which I think is very relevant to what we call the old part of Europe, i.e. connecting in those cities industrial location, industrial sites that have been abandoned, and making them part of the future. So in a specific, also looking at what has happened in France and in Germany and in Spain, and maybe later on I would mention some other success projects that we have seen and tried to copy from it. We have focused on a 30 hectares project, which is an old industrial site that at the time in the 1850 to 900 was collecting gas for the industrial companies. At this point has been abandoned. 30 hectares inside of a very large, dynamic, and active city. So together with the various state, regional, and local entities, we have devised the potential construction of a tech citadel, which basically will draw from very important contribution from both the university, the Italian Milan Polytechnic, from entities there, but at the same time from the contribution, not just of money, but of specific know-how from very large corporates. Therefore, around these 30 hectares will be built, and it has already been starting building, one of the largest wind galleries. There will be a sophisticated frontier optics center led by Luxottica. There will be a micro fab producing 200 millimeters chips inside of this site, and on and on and on. And this will become the venue, which will be shared and divided in 5 blocks of more than 5,000 youngsters that will be living there and trying to produce their dreams through building new towns, such as in a similar way to what was described by the colleague from Canada, from Ottawa. And the key to this project is really linking what was in the past. Therefore, the architect will not destroy the old buildings, will not destroy these old big containers of gas of the past. Those actually will become the icon for the future, clearly in a sustainable way, but nothing will be destroyed. And out of the 5 pillars that will be built, yes, there will be a very important pillar where the startups will be living through their ideas, building companies, destroying companies, failing and resuscitating. There will also be a place of exchange for corporates, more than 40 homes for corporates or houses. But at the same time, and as important, there will be 3 other blocks, which would be a residential place where people could live inside of the citadel and not move in and move out. There will be the largest food court in Europe with cuisines and small courts from all over Mediterranean cuisine, therefore again an aggregation and an inclusion place for people that come from inside of Italy, but more of all from people that will come from outside of Italy. And then finally, a very large outside sports center, again, in this new way of putting together all these, which I think COVID has left us. It's a very large project, 500 million euro, but again, money, we are seeing it around the globe, I think, on those projects. It's not the issue. I don't want to say that is trivial to find the money, but the issue is really execution, and therefore I will leave it where I started. We need the cooperation without selfishness from all the various public institutions and private institutions, but at the same time we need a clear private management execution of the plan, because I would put you into a very interesting book of Josh Lerner, which is called The Boulevard of Broken Dreams. It's for everybody, I think, a very interesting read to be done. Many projects have failed, not because of the purpose, they failed because of the execution of this PPP purpose. We'll leave it there, maybe for later for some of the other examples.
Thank you very much. Just to remind the audience, we will be taking questions from the audience, but first I wanted to ask more of a general question to everyone. We discussed, as you said, COVID-19, which was a huge effect, had a huge effect on cities where people just essentially migrated to remote areas, and you had left with huge office buildings empty. And then as we come out of COVID, these office buildings remained empty and continue to be remaining empty in some cities. So I wanted to, this basically highlighted the importance of digital connectivity and the digital economy. So perhaps we can start with you, Your Excellency. How can cities leverage technology and digital innovation to drive economic growth and enhance accessibility for all residents, including those in faraway areas?
We have a very interesting story in Abu Dhabi related to the COVID and the technology. We were asked over the weekend to close down our offices, shops to be closed, everything to be closed. Immediately we had to run, next week our students has to go to classes, we had to provide our services to our stakeholders, our wives, mothers has to buy foods and groceries from the shops. Immediately we found out that due to the strong infrastructure, by the way, we are the first country in terms of the fiber optic, the first city in the world. So immediately we shifted our services from face-to-face services into electronically. So the shops were not closed. We had like hotels, we had places for weddings. We converted that into either medical care or into storage for the groceries to go to these shops. When it came to school, next day, all our kids were getting the classes through the phones. When it came to groceries, we were able to buy. We had the mindset, the ability to shift immediately. So I found out we shifted into buying our goods and services electronically. Again, we use the taxis to ship the products to the homes, and next day the purchasing power was increased. These services, this is what is interesting. We said, you know what? Let's provide our services into the website, the normal website. Very soon, within a few weeks, we were able to convert that into smart applications. We love them so much. We said, no, let's make them smart. So we have, as a DED, for example, we have introduced, with the cooperation of the government of Abu Dhabi, 700 services. You could get them today through smart applications. You don't need to leave your chairs. Then we said, you know what, time is very crucial. We pushed that down to 6 minutes. We are asked by the president, all the services that we provide, the 611, to be provided to the stakeholders, to be accomplished within 6 minutes. It is done today. All those services are within 6 minutes. Now we have technology, we have efficiencies, we have reduced the cost of issuing a trade license to 1,000 dirham. It is almost $360. So you could open a shop today in Abu Dhabi, get a license within $360. The documentation, we have reduced those documentation by 75%. Why? Because again, everything in the database, everything are available. So you don't need to, all what you need to do, just put your finger into the screen and everything are available. What's next? Now we're going to the journey, going back to a restaurant. It is not getting a license. You need to start a journey. Get a license, open the shops, get labors, do the tax. Now we are into the journeys. We really hope we're going to sit again, and within those 6 minutes, we finish those journeys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Kramer Mbula, you also highlighted mobile paying within Africa. Is there any other initiatives that are including digitization of certain services?
Yes. So as I mentioned, there are huge opportunities in integrating the small players, many of whom are informal businesses, in this whole story about resilience and inclusive cities. During the pandemic, there were many examples of, for instance, informal traders were some of the most affected because of the lack of mobility and the lockdowns and so on. And there are great examples of e-commerce platforms that were created to allow informal businesses and small players of all types to still continue and expand even their markets. So there are great initiatives, and many of them involve several actors, large players. There's the Jumia example. There's that provides an online platform for informal traders to also access markets. But there are other initiatives where large businesses, government, and in some cases NGOs sort of partner together in providing solutions for the small players. And I think those are really, I mean, some of these informal businesses and small businesses have are highly innovative, and they have a deep understanding of social needs and the demand, but they have lack of access to technology, to finance, to training and skills. So I think focusing on that and exploiting the opportunities that exist in that vast resource, really, in the African continent, I think is really something to take into account.
Thank you very much. Sonia, I wanted to ask you about infrastructure development within Ottawa. What strategies have been employed by the city in order to make sure that there's affordable and accessible infrastructure for its residents?
So when I think about Area X.0 and the opportunity to harness all of the technology capabilities, the deep expertise, all three levels of government coming together, the R&D complex that we've created has really democratized, in my opinion, the opportunity for many different types of companies, innovators, researchers to come to this facility and access technologies and opportunities that would have typically been far beyond their reach. So the type of capabilities we have in terms of next generation 5G delivered directly by Ericsson and Nokia before they even hit the market, that adds tremendous advantage and opportunity to founders that are looking to test and validate their different technologies, whether for smart cities, and you see those types of implementations moving forward across the city of Ottawa and the learnings that we're sharing with the world as an incredible opportunity that leverages, I think, that infrastructure. Certainly when I think about how our city responded to the pandemic, one area of opportunity was, of course, the opportunity to support the Main Street businesses that had been shuttered, as you've heard from some of my colleagues on the panel. The governments came together with Invest Ottawa, and we were privileged to deliver something called the Digital Main Street program that enabled all of those businesses that had been shuttered to get online, many of which were bricks and mortar, family-based, had never even thought about something like social media or the opportunity to launch an e-commerce store. So we came together with a lot of funding, and literally in 2 weeks' time, businesses were able to launch that online store, continue generating revenue at a time when they would otherwise have been shuttered, to keep people employed, to keep those jobs moving, to keep services flowing to the community. So that's another way we took advantage of the fact that Shopify, which of course is a company that has emerged out of Ottawa, very proud of that, headquartered in our city, together with a host of other different technologies being developed in Ottawa, serving those innovators and founders. And I'm particularly passionate. I lead our Women Founders and Owners strategy. Inequity was the shining North Star that was driving us. Equitable economic development is absolutely critical, and the pandemic exposed the deep systemic barriers in a far greater way than I think we had certainly seen. And so we wanted to meet women and marginalized founders where they were at to take advantage of that infrastructure, whether you were a smart mobility innovator or whether you were a small business or a technology entrepreneur. How could we pivot and provide access to the programs, to the services, to the funding and the infrastructure to keep going? We saw drones delivering medicines and vaccines and supplies to communities that were rural that could otherwise not have accessed them as quickly. We saw some mobile transportation opportunities. We hosted the first on-road pilot of a low-speed automated shuttle in the province of Ontario during the pandemic. So it was an opportunity to test safety protocols and determine how we could increase mobility during some of these types of challenging times so that we're prepared better for the next crisis. I think there's a lot of ways to leverage that type of infrastructure.
Thank you very much for that. Secretary Fadlala, would you care to elaborate on that and add your own opinion on the subject?
Yes. Well, Mexico City has 9 million persons, and with the metropolitan area, 23 million persons. The Mexico City government is investing in hospitals, new universities, schools, water systems, green spaces, new mobility like 2 cable car transport system in the orient part of Mexico City, and an aggressive program for electromobility in this part of the city. The Mexico City government developed the Vallejo E program to recover the industrial vocation for Mexico City. We want to support the Vallejo E Center to meet private sector, academia, and government. We hope in this place develop collaborative, innovative, and sustainable projects to benefit all the industries in Mexico City and in the counties around. We want to take advantage for nearshoring. We receive only in this administration $800 million only for the Vallejo zone. And we are working for reduce the inequality between the people, the families, and the enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open up to the audience. Do we have any questions coming in?
Hi, good morning. Is it working? My name is Abdulsalam Ali from United Arab Emirates. I'm based here in Geneva, and I do represent UAE in the World Trade Organization. What a great session, what a great panelists from different parts of the world and different backgrounds and countries as well. I've seen a lot of trade policy reviews at the WTO from different countries, a lot of African continents as well, Canada, UAE, and others as well. The trade now is not like the trade like 2 decades back, right? A lot of challenges in 2 different sectors and through different strategies as well. Now my question is, how would you see the capitalizing or leveraging the new cities, whether it is developed or developing, or the LDCs, with the new initiatives coming up in the new sectors, such as AI, artificial intelligence, and the new digital economies, and also the new industries as well. And I know what my country have done, but I'd like to hear a lot of theories and successful stories from the others as well. Thank you.
Maurizio?
Sure. I think it's a wonderful new situation that is being created. And again, it boils down to execution. I like to make concrete examples. I chair a chip company. And this chip company produces all around the world. I think you will have a combination of 2 effects to your question. Large cities will drive major investments in certain areas, such as numeric. There will be mega centers in which, inside of those large cities, there will be this numeric, digital, call it AI, development. At the same time, we have people around the world that are working from home in those very fine frontier companies. And we have people that have been poached in very remote parts of Europe, such as Sicily, from companies that are based in the Netherlands. Think about how beautiful is this situation for our children and grandchildren. Therefore, it will be again down to creating a very agile system based on which people in a very intangible way can move resources. The one that will be heavily penalized are going to be the one that will be bureaucratic. Again, I think I'm taking to a couple of comments that were made from the friends from Abu Dhabi and from Mexico. This is not the time anymore where you need to stamp to produce a company or to free up resources for work, because people will not listen to you. But as long as you can implement this word of very flexible resources coming and moving, I think if you can give people, our young, good education and good life in terms of quality of life, countries that were at a disadvantage in the past could be at equal footing or maybe even at an equal advantage in the future. And this is, I was listening yesterday to some of the very interesting sessions in the morning. This is a humongous opportunity for the southern part of the globe. Again, will be up to the leaderships to implement it, because I don't think there will be mercy for lack of implementation. That's my view.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to add?
I think we're really excited about the opportunity to collaborate in very novel and different ways. So as a city of 1 million people, we look at our strengths. We are looking at what type of contribution we can make and how we harness those strengths and put them together with broader networks. So we collaborate with a series of networks in Ontario dedicated to connected and autonomous vehicles and smart mobility. We're connected into a national network of technology incubators and accelerators, and we're connected to many international partners through the World World Economic Forum and many other networks. And so we're looking at how we can take these novel strengths, couple them and combine them, multi-sector, multidisciplinary opportunities for innovation that give opportunities to our entrepreneurs and companies, allow us to attract foreign direct investment into our region. That's what our global expansion team is dedicated to, and then harness all of that horsepower back and hopefully make contributions and create market opportunity, not just for our founders, but for opportunities with others that we're collaborating with, and the chance to tackle big societal problems that no one individual, team, company, country can solve on their own. So to us, that's what is most exciting about some of the developments we've undertaken at Area Extodo with the multinationals, with the forum, and so many other collaborators.
Thank you.
Very quick comment. Thanks so much for the question. The issues around trade are very topical in the African continent. You know, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, free trade area that has been recently established is a major institutional development that is oriented towards building African markets and increasing intra-regional trade, but also trade with the rest of the world. So it's really in the hotspot of the discussions. When you look at the centers where, you look at Nairobi and the digital-based services that are emerging there, the digital savannah, you see Lagos and Johannesburg and these big sort of hubs of digital innovation, and how that is going to affect trade in services across the continent, I think is a very interesting area. And again, the issue of, we are at a critical time when we have to be creative and very proactive in thinking about regulation, the types of regulation that we need to, for instance, manage things like online payments and things like that, which is still not in place. But I think these issues have to be at the center of the regulation agenda.
Thank you. Secretary Fadlala, would you like to add something?
Yes. We have a challenge in Mexico City about small businesses to incorporate the system of sell with digital economy. We are working with a lot of fintech to digitize the public markets, the small business, to accept payments, credit card, QR codes, debit cards. Mexico City is increase every year the purchase in e-commerce, and the challenge is we don't accept that the small business cannot sell by this way because they get out of the market, and this is a new challenge we have. And we are working to reduce the small business with big business and the medium business. And this is now the challenge we have, and we are working with a lot of the fintech services to reduce this question. And other question is the inclusion between the 16 towns have Mexico City. We have one zone in the west is with a lot of infrastructure, and in the east with low infrastructure. We are working to construction and new infrastructure like mobility, new ways, transportation, schools, hospitals, to have a new systems to give opportunity of all the people to increase their jobs, their salary, and other questions to make and the level of the life is very high. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I realize we are running out of time, so I just wanted to wrap up the conversation by asking all of our panelists a question. Apart from your own city, what is a successful city model that you look up to? We'll start off with you.
Well, I'll keep in the African continent. I think there are great examples of cities that are fast moving, fast changing, and really adapting to particularly driven by the youth. As I mentioned, the African continent is the youngest continent, and I think this is very much driven. So when we look at Nairobi, and we look at Cairo, we look at what is happening in Lagos and in Johannesburg. There is really sort of this very sophisticated, but in a way, islands of excellence. So I think what we need to strive for is to create cities of excellence that connect these key players in those cities with the vast majority of smaller players.
Thank you. Maurizio?
Two very different ones. Again, to the question of our friend in the second row, Estonia is an example of a city without being physical. It's all digital. The second one is the one that we're trying to draw, which is much more of an old continental economic city, which is La Station Freycinet, which is Station F in Paris, which has really turned and made a revolution out of French tech. French tech would not be there without Station F, and Station F is a wonderful cooperation between various states, entity in France, and this phenomenal entrepreneur who is called Xavier Niel, who has really made it flourish. And then one very quick last comment. I would caution on a couple of things as we talked about these things, is data. Data can get in trouble. Our friend from Ottawa can tell us about Google and Toronto. And then profit. We need to be very careful in telling if we want to make profit into these initiatives or if this is philanthropic, because the public opinion will have zero tolerance on those two issues.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency?
I really would like to say Abu Dhabi. Again, we ask investors really every once in a while, why Abu Dhabi? Why come Abu Dhabi? What's not in Abu Dhabi? First of all, for the investors, rules, regulations. In the last 2 years, more than 100 radical laws were introduced, rules, regulations, protecting the investors. 2, investors come, they want capital. They have different channels of getting the capital. 3, the infrastructure. Today, Abu Dhabi, ease of doing business in 2022, ranked number 9th. 3, the life of living. Today, you live in Abu Dhabi, you bring your family, your kids, you have the best schools, best environments, best buildings, best... it makes the life of the businessman with his family happier. Connectivity. We are at the point where 80% of the world population could be reached within 5 hours through the airplane. And you have good relationships, because when you make a business, you create a chair, you want to develop it, you want to have an R&D. Today we have different incubators for the innovators. Today we have taxis driving in Abu Dhabi without a driver. Those robotic delivery, it's already introduced last week. So it is a place, a green field for any businessman, innovators, expert wants to expand. I really see Abu Dhabi as a good paradise.
But apart from Abu Dhabi, apart from the city that you're from, what is another city that's successful?
I'll go to Dubai.
Sonia?
I'm going to share an opportunity that I think a lot of cities are beginning to reap the value of. To me, it's if you can create a powerful, bold, shared vision, something that's purpose-driven, where everyone rallies around that goal, but acquires a different benefit and opportunity, something that adds value to the individual, to the region, to the city, to the different stakeholders, and also makes a contribution to the world. I think that's a model that's very powerful, something that's founded on a triple bottom line, not simply commercial opportunity, something that's focused on equity and inclusion, where we're equipping everyone to fulfill their passion, where we're creating jobs of the future and empowering talent that allows everyone to rise so that we can solve those big societal problems. I'm seeing it with many cities that are gathered here today at the Growth Summit. Certainly I put Ottawa in that camp, and I think that we can be leaders and really have a major impact on the world and on future generations to come if we look at that big, bold vision where everyone has a win and it's triple bottom line and it's equitable.
Thank you. And finally, Secretary Fadlala.
Well, one experience of success, we proud about Mexico City has become the most connected city in the world. We have 30,000 free Wi-Fi spots across the city. Now holding the world Guinness record as the most connected city in the world.
And what about another city that you find as a success? What other
Another
city?
city, well, pues, another city. We found Ottawa.
Ah.
Another cities like Tokyo, or I don't remember if in Latin America, Sao Paulo.
All very, very good answers.
Sí.
And with that, I'd like to wrap up this extremely insightful panel. I wanted to remind the audience and those watching at home to please come up with the initiatives. Remember the cities that you're living in. You can also reach out to the World Economic Forum and reach out to any of our panelists here if you may. Thank you very much to each and every one of you for your insightful comments, and thank you all for tuning in.